The Chicago skyline disappears behind a curtain of relentless rain as Lauren Parker sits hunched over her laptop in a dimly lit apartment. The glow of the screen casts sharp shadows across her face, a face that betrays exhaustion, intelligence, and something deeper, something restless. At 32, she is sharp-witted, meticulous, and painfully aware of her place in the world, a mid-level accountant at Carter Financial Solutions, competent but overlooked. Her fingers hover over the keyboard. For months, she has watched Marcus Carter, the company's enigmatic founder, move through the office with effortless command. He wears power like a second skin, his charm disarming, his presence magnetic. Lauren knows better than to entertain fantasies, but tonight, the weight of her loneliness presses harder than usual. The rain drums against the window like an impatient heartbeat. She opens a blank document. At first, it's just a private exercise, a way to release the words she'd never dare say aloud. A love letter. But as she writes, something shifts. Her professional instincts take over. She knows the company's systems too well, the blind spots in their security protocols, the delays in transaction verifications. Her confession twists into something darker, more dangerous. A blueprint. Step by step, she outlines how someone could siphon $1 million from Carter's accounts without immediate detection. It's hypothetical, of course. A thought experiment. A way to prove to herself that she could outsmart the man who fascinates her. Then, the fatal slip. Her thumb brushes the trackpad. The email, raw, unpolished, damning, flies from her draft folder directly into Marcus Carter's inbox before she can react. The realization hits like ice water. There's no undo button, no recall function. The message is gone, and with it, her anonymity. Lauren's breath catches. The rain outside seems to slow, the world narrowing to the single line on her screen, delivered. She snaps the laptop shut. Her apartment feels suddenly suffocating. The walls press in, the air thick with the scent of coffee and regret. She paces, her mind racing through the consequences. Exposure, humiliation, criminal charges. Marcus Carter isn't just her boss. He's a man with a reputation for ruthless efficiency. If he reads that email, he'll see not just a confession, but a threat. Across the city, in a penthouse overlooking the river, Marcus Carter's phone chimes softly. He ignores it at first, swirling bourbon in a crystal glass. The city lights blur through the rain-streaked windows. When he finally checks the notification, his expression doesn't change, but his fingers tighten slightly around the glass. The email is unlike anything he's ever received. A love letter wrapped around a theft. And the most unsettling part? It's brilliant. Lauren doesn't sleep that night. Every creak of the building, every distant siren, feels like a prelude to disaster. She imagines security kicking down her door at dawn, Marcus's cold gaze in an interrogation room. But as the hours crawl by, nothing happens. The silence is worse than any confrontation. She has no way of knowing that, miles away, Marcus Carter is still awake too, staring at her words, and smiling. The morning light filters through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus Carter's corner office, painting geometric patterns across the polished mahogany desk. He arrives earlier than usual, the encrypted email still glowing on his monitor. The words have been dissected a dozen times already, each pass revealing new layers beneath what should have been a simple disciplinary matter. Lauren Parker's confession sits between corporate formality and intimate revelation, a love letter wrapped in a security breach report. But it's the theft blueprint that holds Marcus's attention. The precision of it, the elegance, not the work of an amateur, but of someone who understands systems intimately enough to exploit their weaknesses without leaving obvious traces. A slow smile spreads across his face as he leans back in his chair. The leather creaks softly beneath him. Most people would have called security immediately. Most people would have seen only the threat. But Marcus Carter isn't most people. His fingers tap rhythmically against the armrest as he considers the woman behind the email. The quiet accountant who never drew attention to herself. He's seen her in meetings, sharp-eyed but reserved, the kind of employee who blends into the background by design. Now he wonders how much else he's missed. Down in accounting, Lauren moves through her morning routine like a ghost. Her coffee goes untouched. Every time the office door opens, her shoulders tense. The email notification from Marcus's assistant hits her inbox at 9:17 a.m. A simple meeting request for 11 o'clock. No subject, no context. The 2 hours that follow stretch into eternity. Lauren's fingers tremble as she straightens her blouse outside Marcus's office. The receptionist gives her a curious look, but says nothing. When the door finally opens, the space beyond feels more like an interrogation room than an executive suite. Marcus stands by the window, silhouetted against the Chicago skyline. He doesn't turn immediately when she enters, letting the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. When he finally faces her, his expression gives nothing away. Lauren's prepared speech dies in her throat. She expects fury, disdain, at best, cold professionalism as he hands her termination papers. What she doesn't expect is the faint amusement in his eyes. The way he studies her like she's a particularly interesting puzzle. He gestures to the chair across from his desk. She sits mechanically, her knees locking into place. The leather feels cold through her skirt. Marcus doesn't sit. Instead, he circles the desk with deliberate steps, coming to rest against its edge just a little too close for professional comfort. When he finally speaks, his voice is calm, measured. You missed a step in your plan. Lauren's breath catches. This isn't how this was supposed to go. Marcus reaches behind him and slides a single sheet of paper across the desk. Lauren recognizes her own words instantly, the email printed out in stark black and white. But there, in the margin, in precise handwriting, Marcus has noted a flaw in her scheme, a vulnerability she overlooked. He's not firing her. He's grading her work. The realization hits like a physical blow. Lauren's pulse roars in her ears as Marcus pushes off the desk and moves to the window again, hands clasped behind his back. Most people would call the police, he muses, watching the city below. But I'm not most people. He turns just enough to catch her reaction. And neither, it seems, are you. The air between them crackles with unspoken possibilities. Lauren's mind races, trying to reconcile the man in front of her with the corporate figurehead she thought she knew. There's something dangerous in his demeanor now, something that goes beyond the polished CEO facade. When Marcus finally lays out his proposition, his voice drops to just above a whisper. Not a threat, an invitation, the kind that changes everything. The Chicago winter bites through Henry's threadbare jacket as he pushes a mop across the warehouse floor. His breath comes in visible puffs, fingers stiff around the handle. The night shift pays cash, no questions asked. At 47, he's become invisible, just another aging black man doing work no one else wants. Back in the parking lot, his rusted Ford pickup serves as both transportation and shelter. The cab smells of old coffee and damp wool. A faded photograph of his daughter is taped to the dashboard, her smile frozen in time. He's lost track of how many shelters and temp jobs have come and gone since the factory closed. Claire's investigators find him at dawn. Their polished shoes crunch on the frozen gravel as Henry emerges from the truck, squinting against their headlights. The corporate types never come to this part of town unless they're lost. But these ones know his name. The meeting happens in a diner that hasn't been updated since the 70s. Vinyl booze crack under Henry's weight as he eyes Claire across the table. Her designer coat probably costs more than his truck. He expects pity, maybe some corporate charity PR stunt. Instead, she slides a business card across the formica. You don't know me, she says. The diamond on her finger catches the fluorescent light. But I think you might understand this. The Children's Center sits in a neighborhood Henry used to avoid. Bright murals cover the brick exterior, laughter spilling from open windows. Inside, kids cluster around volunteers, their artwork covering every surface. Claire moves through the space with easy familiarity, her heels clicking against polished floors. Henry stops in the doorway. The smell of crayons and disinfectant hits him like a memory. His daughter would have been about this age now. A small hand tugs at his sleeve. Mister? You okay? Claire watches from across the room as Henry kneels to the child's level. His work-roughened hands are gentle as he adjusts the little boy's crooked name tag. Something shifts in his expression, a softening around the eyes that wasn't there before. Later, in the center's quiet kitchen, Claire pours coffee into chipped mugs. The steam rises between them as she tells him about the stranger who gave her a coat 20 years ago. How that single act changed everything. Henry's fingers tighten around his cup. The office building they approach hours later gleams under the afternoon sun. Henry hesitates at the glass doors, his reflection warped in the polished surface. The suit Claire's assistant brought hangs loose on his frame. Inside the elevator, Claire presses the button for the top floor. "You don't have to decide anything today," she says. The numbers climb steadily upward. Henry watches the city unfold through the glass walls. From up here, everything looks possible. The weight in his chest hasn't lifted, but it's changed shape somehow. Become something he might carry differently. When the doors open, Claire doesn't push. She simply steps out and waits, leaving the choice entirely his. The hum of the office surrounds them. Phones ringing, keyboards clacking, the rhythm of normalcy. Henry takes a deep breath. His work boots leave faint marks on the pristine carpet as he crosses the threshold. The morning of the heist dawns with an unnatural stillness. Lauren arrives at work precisely at 8:17 a.m., her usual time, carrying her standard latte and worn leather briefcase. Nothing in her appearance suggests this isn't just another Tuesday. The security guard nods as she swipes her access card, the electronic chirp sounding louder than usual in her ears. Marcus is already in his office, standing motionless before the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city stretches beneath him like a circuit board waiting to be rewired. His reflection shows a man perfectly composed, tailored suit, polished shoes, the very picture of corporate control. Only the rhythmic tapping of his fingers against his thigh betrays the anticipation humming through him. At exactly 9:30 a.m., the first transaction executes. A routine transfer from the corporate account to a vendor Lauren set up weeks ago. Except this time, the payment detours through a series of offshore shells before vanishing completely. The system logs will show nothing unusual, just a standard payment that somehow never reached its destination. Lauren watches from her cubicle as the first red flag appears on her screen. Her fingers hover over the keyboard, performing the expected frantic keystrokes of a confused employee. Across the office, Marcus's door flies open with calculated force. His voice carries through the bullpen, sharp with manufactured outrage. By noon, the police arrive. Two detectives in rumpled suits take notes as Lauren stammers through her rehearsed confusion. She wrings her hands just enough to seem genuinely shaken. Marcus paces behind his desk, the perfect portrait of a victimized executive, his anger measured and precise. The detectives leave with empty promises and photocopies of meaningless paperwork. The moment the elevator doors close, the atmosphere in the office shifts. Marcus's shoulders relax. A slow smile spreads across his face as he turns to Lauren. In the sudden quiet, the reality of what they've done settles between them. The stolen money sits in an account only they can access. The plan worked perfectly. Too perfectly. Lauren expected relief, maybe even guilt. Instead, she finds Marcus energized, his eyes alight with something that makes her stomach tighten. He moves around his desk with predatory grace, stopping just inches from her. The scent of his cologne mixes with the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. When he speaks, his voice is low, intimate, not the tone of a man planning to return stolen funds. His fingers brush against hers as he describes tropical islands and new identities. The touch lingers just a second too long. Lauren's breath catches. This was supposed to be an intellectual exercise, a temporary game. But the way Marcus looks at her now suggests something far more permanent, something dangerous. The office walls seem to press closer as the weight of their actions truly sinks in. The police could return at any moment. The money could be traced. Every second they remain here increases the risk. Yet Marcus appears utterly at ease, as if they've just closed a particularly satisfying deal rather than committed grand larceny. He pours 2 glasses of whiskey from the decanter on his desk, handing one to Lauren with a conspiratorial tilt of his head. The ice cubes clink as her hand trembles. The amber liquid catches the afternoon light, reminding her absurdly of the security cameras they've bypassed hours earlier. All those safeguards, all those systems, undone by her knowledge and his daring. Outside the window, the city continues unaware. People hurry along sidewalks. Cars inch through traffic, completely oblivious to the theft happening in plain sight. Lauren's reflection in the glass looks back at her, a woman she barely recognizes. Marcus's fingers brush the small of her back as he moves to stand beside her. His warmth radiates through the thin fabric of her blouse. When he speaks, his breath stirs the hair at her temple. To new beginnings. The toast hangs between them. Lauren's glass remains frozen halfway to her lips as the full implications of this moment crystallize. There's no going back now. The line between fantasy and reality has not just been crossed, it's been obliterated. Somewhere in the building, an elevator pings. A door opens and closes. The ordinary sounds of an ordinary workday continuing around them. Lauren's pulse thrums in her throat as she meets Marcus's gaze. The whiskey burns going down. The safe house smells of stale coffee and new money. Lauren counts the cash for the 3rd time, the crisp hundreds making soft, whispering sounds as they slide through her fingers. The duffel bag sits half-packed on a motel bed, clothes, a burner phone, the fake ID she'd procured months ago, just in case. Outside, a neon vacancy sign flickers against the drawn curtains, painting the room in intermittent pulses of red light. She hesitates with her hand on the doorknob, the note from Marcus burning in her pocket. 5 words scribbled on hotel stationery that change everything. The air conditioner hums too loudly, masking the sound of her ragged breathing. Across town, Marcus waits at the private airstrip as arranged, checking his watch with growing impatience. The jet's engines whine softly in the background. His fingers tap an uneven rhythm against the leather briefcase containing his share. By the time he realizes she isn't coming, the sun has risen over Lake Michigan, painting the tarmac in harsh morning light. The note arrives by courier at noon. Marcus tears open the envelope with uncharacteristic violence, his perfect composure cracking like thin ice. The paper trembles in his hand as he reads those 5 damning words. His fist clenches, crushing the note into a tiny ball that he hurls across the hangar. Lauren's trail goes cold faster than Marcus expects. The bus station cameras mysteriously malfunction during her departure. The cab driver who dropped her at the motel remembers nothing helpful. Even the bank withdrawals are perfectly spaced and sized to avoid triggering alerts. She planned this exit carefully, leaving just enough false leads to send investigators in circles. Winter turns to spring. Marcus's private investigators grow increasingly frustrated. The woman they're chasing seems to have vanished into thin air. No credit card purchases. No social security number activity. Not even a stray parking ticket. The money remains untouched in the offshore accounts, a taunting reminder of her discipline. Meanwhile, in a small Michigan town where Lake Huron meets pine forests, a new middle school teacher arrives as the school year begins. Sarah Wilkins keeps to herself, renting a modest cottage near the water. The locals find her pleasant, but reserved, attributing her occasional distracted moments to big city nerves. She wears simple clothes, buys groceries with cash, and spends evenings grading papers by the light of a secondhand lamp. The classroom becomes her sanctuary. Children's laughter fills the spaces where paranoia used to live. She teaches math with quiet precision, finding unexpected comfort in equations that always balance, problems that always have solutions. Her students know only that Ms. Wilkins used to work with numbers in Chicago, and that she gets a faraway look whenever the word is mentioned. At night, when the wind howls off the lake, Sarah, lies awake staring at the ceiling. The local newspaper sits unread on her kitchen table, its business section featuring a small article about Carter Financial's mysterious security breach. She's memorized every word without meaning to. Back in Chicago, Marcus stares at a map pinned to his office wall, red threads connecting cities where she might have gone. His once impeccable appearance shows subtle signs of unraveling: a day's stubble, a loosened tie. The investigators have nothing new to report. The money hasn't moved. The trail has gone completely cold. He pours himself a drink, the ice cubes clinking like the security cameras that once captured Lauren walking through the office for the last time. The footage shows nothing unusual, just a woman leaving work at her normal time, carrying her normal bag. Only Marcus knows what that bag contained. Only he understands the significance of that ordinary exit. The glass shatters against the wall, whiskey dripping down like tears. Outside, the city lights twinkle indifferently. Somewhere out there, she's laughing. She's teaching. She's living. And he has no idea how to find her. In Michigan, Sarah Wilkins grades a trigonometry test, her red pen moving methodically down the page. The evening news plays softly in the background, another story about corporate crime in Chicago. Her hand pauses for just a second before continuing its work. Outside her window, the first snow of the season begins to fall, covering everything in a blanket of pristine white. The small Michigan town looks like something from a postcard as Marcus drives through its quiet streets. He's here on legitimate business, a consulting gig for the local bank that barely warrants his time, but provides cover for what might be his last attempt. 18 months of dead ends have worn his determination thin. The late afternoon sun slants through the windshield, painting the dashboard in golden light as he passes a cozy cafe with large picture windows. His foot lifts off the accelerator instinctively. There, bathed in sunlight, sits a woman with familiar cheekbones and a new way of holding herself. Lauren? No. She goes by Sarah now, laughs at something a student says, her face transformed by an ease he's never seen before. A steaming mug sits forgotten as she helps a teenager with math homework, her fingers moving in familiar patterns across the paper. Marcus parks down the block and watches through the cafe window like a ghost observing the living. She wears simple clothes now, a cream-colored sweater, jeans, boots made for walking rather than running. The diamond studs he once saw glinting in boardroom lighting have been replaced by small silver hoops. When an elderly woman struggles with grocery bags at the next table, Lauren rises without hesitation to help. The gesture is automatic, uncalculated. For hours, he shadows her at a distance. To the bookstore where she runs fingers along spines with quiet reverence. To the park where she sits on a bench reading a novel, completely absorbed. This version of Lauren exists in the world differently, present, grounded, unafraid. The realization settles in his chest like a stone. At dusk, he follows at a safe distance as she walks home, her breath visible in the crisp air. The cottage she enters is modest but cared for, with curtains in the windows and a wreath on the door. Light spills from the kitchen as she moves about making tea, unaware of the silhouette watching from the street. Marcus doesn't knock. Instead, he slips the envelope into her mailbox just before dawn. The original love letter and heist plan, slightly yellowed at the edges. Beneath her carefully typed words, he's added just two in his distinctive handwriting: his name. Nothing more. No demands. No threats. Just an acknowledgement that he knows, that he found her, and that he's letting her go. The sun rises over Lake Huron as Lauren discovers the envelope. Her hands shake as she unfolds the familiar paper. The tears come suddenly, silently, dripping onto ink that hasn't faded despite everything that's happened since she wrote those words. She runs to the door, flinging it open to scan the empty street, but only a faint set of tire marks in the frost suggests anyone was ever there. Back inside, she finds a second envelope tucked beneath the first. The cashier's check inside bears an amount that makes her knees weak. All of it. Every stolen dollar, returned. The accompanying note contains just 3 words, no strings attached. On the highway heading south, Marcus adjusts the rearview mirror until the sleepy town disappears behind him. The rising sun glints off something small and metallic tossed onto the passenger seat. A silver hoop earring identical to the one she wore today. His last souvenir. The road stretches ahead, empty and full of possibility. In his pocket, a boarding pass for Buenos Aires grows warm against his thigh. Somewhere behind him, a woman sits at a kitchen table surrounded by lesson plans and unspent millions, holding a love letter from another life. The morning mist burns away as his car crests the hill. Neither of them will ever be the same. Both are finally free.